This episode was recorded before the coronavirus outbreak.
Well, my parents and sister did read it. Now, my parents have a different memory of certain events than I do, but we agreed to not talk about the book. They said it was very well written, and they enjoyed it, and I said we're going to leave it at that and never bring it up again.
Meet Palle Bo, a digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world.
My name is Palle Bo, and I'm a longtime radio producer. In 2013, I started planning to become a digital nomad and a full-time traveler. And in July 2016, I set out on a quest to visit every country in the world.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
Push things, and I push, I feel good, and I pull, I feel good. Despite they hide their bodies under my garage. Despite they hide their bodies under my garage. Despite they hide their bodies under my garage. Under my garage brush.
I am in London right now, on my way down to the central line here in the London Underground. I'm on my way to do my second interview. I think it's the first time I have a guest that's back on this podcast, but there's a reason for that. His name is Matt Kepnes, but you might know him as Nomadic Matt.
Matt Kepnes is an American travel blogger, and among travel bloggers, he's a rock star and a New York Times best-selling author. He and his writing has been featured in the New York Times, CNN, National Geographic, Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and BBC. Matt was born in Boston in '81, and growing up he wasn't a big traveler. In fact, at 23, he had never left the United States. But in 2004, he took a trip to Costa Rica, and that experience changed his life. From that moment on, he was hooked on travel, and when he came back from a trip to Thailand the following year, he finished his MBA, quit his job, and began traveling the world full-time and blogging about his experiences. In short, he became Nomadic Matt.
This is Oxford Circus. Change here for the Bakerloo and Victoria line.
And in 2008, he started nomadicmatt.com to record his stories and monetize his traveling. Now, he's built an empire around the Nomadic Matt brand. He writes books, runs an online blogging school called Superstar Blogging, where he offers online courses in blogging and also hosts other courses. He does guidebooks, he owns a hostel, and he created TravelCon, a conference for travel bloggers and content creators.
District line, the next train to Edgware Road will arrive in 2 minutes.
Matt's first book, How to Travel the World on $50 a Day, was published in 2013. That was one of the books I bought in the planning stages of my journey leading up to the day I left in 2016. And the first time I met him was a week into my journey when I was at a travel conference in Stockholm. Here I had him on the podcast. That's episode 18. And since then, we met a number of times, also including when he hosted his first TravelCon in Austin 2 years ago. He's still Nomadic Matt, but his life as a full-time traveler is over. Well, at least for now. And that's the topic of his new book. And since we're both in London for World Travel Market, we decided to meet and catch up. He invited me to visit him at his hotel, so that's why I'm in the London Underground, because that's where I'm heading now. My name is Palle Bo, and this is the Radio Vagabond podcast. This episode is brought to you in part by this website called hotels25.com. If you're a regular listener, you have heard me mention this before, and I can't say this enough. This is a cool website. It helps you find the cheapest hotel rooms around the world. Hotels25.com. You should try it out. It actually works.
Matt, the book's called 10 Years a Nomad, A Traveler's Journey Home. So I'm curious, where is home?
Currently, home is in Austin, Texas. But the book is more about a state of mind. Home being a place where, it doesn't need to be a physical place. It's wherever you feel comfortable. And, I can feel at home in many, many cities, when you feel comfortable with yourself, then home is like...
Where the heart is.
Yeah, where the heart is, right? But also it can be anywhere because... we have this construct where like home is a place, it's it's a building, it's a town, it's a physical location. But if you can be anywhere and sort of like melt into the local life and just feel like the rhythm of that place matches your rhythm, then home is really a lot of places.
We first met in Stockholm in 2016, and I've been following you along the way, and I get your newsletter, and all of a sudden I saw, okay, now you're done traveling, and now you're moving to New York. And then I think 1 year later, I'm moving to Paris, and then now I'm moving to Austin. So I get the sense that you're still kind of traveling, but just extremely slow traveling.
Well, I have been living in New York for a while. And that was good for a certain time in my life when I was like, but now I want like more space, like.
So Texas.
Yeah, well, you get like, I want warm weather. And I went to Paris to test that. I've always wanted to like live in Paris. I think people took it as like a forever ever move when I didn't. I never really intended it to be a forever move.
No, you stayed around 6 months or?
Yeah, I stayed close to 5.
Okay, but when you moved there, did you play with the thought of staying longer or?
Yeah, I was always open to the possibility that I would stay longer. It was a trial run. I really loved living in Paris. I had a great time there. I would gladly go back for a couple of months every year. But I don't want to live in France. I don't want to like shift my entire life to France. I guess if I had, like a French girlfriend that sort of like gave me a reason to, then I would have considered it more. But, at 38, I didn't really want to like restart my entire friends and family and social life all over again.
But did you manage to get some local friends there?
Very few. Most of my friends were expats. I only made like 3 or 4 friends in that time period. But I had a lot of friends visit me during then. So like I wasn't ever like really bored because I had an extra bedroom. So everyone came to visit.
Yeah. You're not considering on moving to Boston?
No, my parents still live up there. But I don't like winters. So I'm not keen to move back. It's a little bit of a small town. In my mind, it's always a town I grew up in, but not the place I want to like settle down in. I don't like winter, so.
No, I heard you say that if you could move Sweden to the Caribbean, then you would live there.
Yeah, I love Sweden. Especially in the summer months. It's like great quality of life, great people, great architecture. I love the culture.
Well, it's not Denmark, but it's close enough.
Yeah, but again, I love Denmark too, but I don't want to be there from November to March.
No. And I think actually since I started traveling full time, the only time I've seen snow was when I was in Colorado, high up in the mountains. I try to avoid the cold weather as well.
I don't mind going ski like on a ski trip, right? Because then you're like prepared. Okay, like you're only there for the fun of it. It's not like you have to walk to work and you have to deal with that because like you wake up and you go skiing for like a couple of days and you go back to the warm weather. But like, do I want to wake up and have to shovel snow and like go grocery shopping while like it's minus 10 out? No, I do not.
No. let's get back to the book because it's kind of a memoir, and you seem quite young to be writing it. You're not even 40.
I'm not 40, but see, a memoir is not an autobiography. An autobiography is like the tale of my life. A memoir is just a snapshot of something in time. So it could be a memoir on your days in college. Like anything that is a limited set of time is a memoir. So this is just my 10 years backpacking. So it's a memoir on that. If you wrote, about your year living in, say you moved to Colorado, it would be a memoir.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people, we confuse memoir with autobiography when they're technically two different things.
So obviously the book is about your experiences, and it's also quite personal from time to time. But it contains also a lot of tips for travelers.
Yeah, I really wanted the book to follow the emotional arc of a journey abroad. From getting the travel bug to planning the trip to what it's like stepping out the door and traveling and then coming home and all that stuff that happens in between. But every chapter is sort of like how my thoughts on an aspect of travel has changed over time. So, and sort of my advice to deal with the emotional side of travel, the why. My first book, How to Travel the World on $50 a Day, is a very practical guide. This is more about the feelings and the why of travel than it is like, what backpack to buy.
I remember you saying that it's so personal that there might be some awkward conversations with your family. Has that occurred?
Well, my parents and sister did read it, as I figured they would. Now, my parents have a different memory of certain events than I do, but we agreed to not talk about the book. They said it was very well written, and they enjoyed it, and I said, we're going to leave it at that and never bring it up again.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
What triggered your urge to travel back when you were in your early 20s?
I think I just really liked the fact that I didn't have to go to work. I had a job I hated. I had just finished grad school, so I thought it was a good break. I'll go backpack the world.
The gap year.
Yeah, I'll take my gap year and then come back and get a real job and, get a house and a van and, all that shit. And I just never came back. So, and I never had any intention of traveling long term or being a travel writer or really anything. I just knew I just didn't want to go back home and get a shitty job. So I just was like, I'll work in Asia for a little bit longer. And
Doing what?
I taught English for a while. And then, I'll start this blog and we'll see what happens. And then it just,
but because
one thing led to another.
Yeah, because when you started the blog, that was, I don't know if you can say it was in the early days of blogging, but it kind of was, if you were one of the first movers in that area.
Yeah, 2008, when I started in 2008, there were already a good number of blogs, I would comment on them all, but there still weren't a lot. And it was not like an industry. And I think even if you look at other industries, there weren't a lot of bloggers, it wasn't a thing. It was still a weird thing to have a blog. So yeah, I started pretty early.
But did you start that in order to make money from it? Was that the goal?
No, I started the website as sort of an online resume, naively thinking what was a job that I could do that would keep me traveling. And I thought, travel writer seems like a great job. Let's write guidebooks and do all that. So the website was just a way where people could find me and hire me for freelance work. Mm-hmm. And there was the blog component there too. But then the more I interviewed freelance writers, the less appealing it sounded to me. And then I just kept blogging. eventually it kind of took off after a couple of years.
And then it's really grew into this Nomadic Matt empire that you have now.
Yeah, I have the blog, books, courses, a conference. Now we have community meetups. So there's a lot going on. I like building things, and I think that's in part, some of the success. It's just I keep adding to it, you know. And so,
do you get bored then once it's done? Are you want to create something new, because that's a typical thing for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, we don't really stop things. I just keep adding to them.
Yeah.
When the life cycle of like a product has sort of ended, I mean, not as many people buy PDF books anymore, right? So like, gotta have something else. Mm-hmm. But I do like thinking of new ways to grow the empire, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
It's enjoyable.
Let's talk a little bit about how you traveled, because I remember when we met in Stockholm, that was a week into my full-time travel, and you said to me, slow down, don't rush it, because you didn't go to, I think you mentioned India, to sit behind the computer all the time.
Yeah. You didn't go all the way to India to sit in front of your computer for 3 days, right? So you're going to have to take work breaks so you can actually enjoy the destination you're at.
And I really took that lesson, and sometimes I travel faster, but when I need to do some work, I slow down. So I took your advice on that. How did you travel? Did that vary, or did that change over time?
Yeah, it definitely changed over time. I slowed down a lot because I work and travel all at once. Now I don't like doing that. So if I'm going to a new destination, I tend to just write and check emails, which is fine for me, but I don't start new projects. There's a whole bunch of stuff in my inbox right now, but we've been at this conference together. That requires to be still for a bit. The heavy projects, the things that take a lot of brain power, you got to sit in one place and really devote all your energy to it. You can't sort of half-ass it, while you're on the train to the next destination. So I tend to sort of try to divide work and play as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I don't consider writing work. I like it. But the heavy lifting stuff, I have to be in one place for a while.
Do you know how many countries you've been to? Is that something you count?
I don't really count countries, but I would definitely say it's about 100. And I've been saying it's about 100 for a while, because I haven't really tallied it up. It's probably a little...
Tally up and see how...
It's probably a little over 100 now, but not too much over. There's...
most people, I crossed the line of a 100. So.
Yeah, it's not that important to me.
No.
Some people are really into country counting. Yeah. It's sort of a measurement of how well they've traveled. But, yeah, maybe not a lot of countries, but I go back to countries and explore new areas of them, and that's still travel.
Oh yeah, but are there any places that you haven't been to yet that you really want to go to?
Oh yeah, I haven't been to India, Russia, Brazil.
Oh,
so those the big three, kind of haven't been there. Haven't been to Egypt. I haven't really been to most of Africa. All those Pacific islands, a lot of the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. I love to go through all the stands, just go through all of them. That would be great.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, about half the world.
Yeah.
I've only made it halfway.
Yeah, exactly. A big part of traveling for me is meeting interesting people. Can you name one or two of the most interesting random people you run into around the world?
I remember being in Takashima, I think it was. No, Kanazawa, Japan. And just at a sushi restaurant, this Japanese guy was fascinated by the fact that I was just in this random town in the sushi place, and we started chatting. And he was really interesting. Started telling me all about different fishes and got me to try a bunch of stuff. Mm. So there's interesting like that, and then there's people who have done great cool things like chefs, and I met the inventor of modern bungee jumping, AJ Hackett. He's interesting.
Yeah. I did his bungee jump in Macau, but I didn't meet him.
Yeah, he was actually like not what I expected. He's just like this short, skinny hippie dude.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember he made a name for himself when he illegally did a bungee jump from the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. He also bungee jumped out of a helicopter once.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's many kinds of interesting, and you're always, I find just regular everyday people fascinating, and the lives they lead, and how do they go about their day to day that is the same but different than my day to day. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of differences.
But are there some of the people that you met on your journey that became lifelong friends that you're still in contact with?
Yeah, there's a lot, even from that original, first couple of hostels, back in the early days of 2006, where I still stay in touch with these folks, 13 years later. Yeah. And I've been to weddings, I've stayed at houses, I've, met their kids, and, I think one benefit to travel friendships is that since you don't deal with a lot of the day-to-day bullshit, that like when you come back together, it's like you just move forward with this relationship that just sort of like you press paused on, and like you don't really grow apart because like you were always apart. So like that's just part of the relationship, and you just sort of come back together, and then you go apart again and come back together, but like there's this bond, there's an unspoken bond there that like we don't have to be in each other's lives every day to be close.
Matt, before we wrap up, the book has some lessons you've learned from your travel. Can you share 3 of the bigger ones?
Well, I think 1, travel slowly. 2, people are generally good. I know that's a cliche thing to say. But like when you like just see people in their day-to-day life and like they help you, you really internalize this, thing logically. Like intellectually that like people are good. There's more good people than bad people. Yeah. I also say it's a lot cheaper than you think. We think of travel as this expensive journey, but like if you sort of just do the everyday things you do back at home in a different country, it works out pretty cheap. Public transportation, lunch specials and happy hours and free activities, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to fill your day.
So what's next for you? What's the next thing that you're adding to the list of things?
We just started a community program called the Nomadic Network, and it's just sort of in-person local chapters to bring like sort of the online community we created offline, and so people can sort of just meet other travelers. We'll have an educational component to it, where like people can like hear a speaker. We'll do like picnics, happy hours, game nights. It's just a way to sort of like create a community of travelers. Because when you come home and you're like, nobody understands me, like you want. So it's a good way to just get people into the mix.
And it's free to join?
It's free to join, but the events cost $10, and that's just to cover the cost of like the venue. Sure. Yeah, but you can bring a friend for free. Okay. So.
And where do we find it?
You can find it on our website, thenomadicnetwork.com. Yes.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yes.
And the book is out everywhere.
The book is available in the U.S., Canada, UK, and Australia, or you can just buy it from one of those countries and ship it to you wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, and they'll ship anywhere.
Yeah, and also there's an audiobook.
The audiobook is just U.S., Canada.
Yeah. I have to figure out how to use my VPN and pretend I'm in the U.S. I didn't download it when I was there. I was there 2 months and I didn't download it. Damn it. Yeah.
You're gonna trick Amazon. Yeah. Now they'll know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's see if I can do that. Anyway, I'll put links to all this in the show notes and on the radiovagabond.com. Matt, thanks again, and see you soon.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you right now because we're across from each other.
As I mentioned, you can find links to thenomadicnetwork.com, nomadicmatt.com, and then I put a link to all of Matt's books on Amazon. Go check it out. It's really exciting stuff. I'll be back soon with another episode from Cape Town, produced by radioguru.co.uk and partly supported by Hotels25.com. My name is Palle Bo. See ya.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.